Good morning. Welcome to another Your Lurgan podcast. I'm Donagh McKeown.
And I'm Michael Scott. Hello.
And well, it is you're looking a little grey around the gills at the start of the week, I understand, but much better now.
Yeah, the sort of ropey start of the week. Yeah, it wasn't feeling great. Nothing to do with my trip away to Dublin, of course, last week. But no, it just wasn't upset tummy, shall we say. And no,
And you enjoyed the experience, of course.
Oh, in Dublin, yeah, it was fantastic. The zoo was brilliant. We I have to say, the tigers, unbelievable. They come really close to you. I know there's a big bit of glass between the two of you, but you sort of want to reach out and give them a wee stroke and say hello.
And of course, it's there for the tigers' protection in your case.
Yes, absolutely. And then we had a lovely stay. Where did we stay? It was the Maldron Hotel outside Dublin, Marion Road. So I think it's actually fairly new. It was very, very nice. Lovely meal on it. We were absolutely punctured after walking around the zoo. So we just chilled out that evening. And then we tried to go around Dublin on Sunday afternoon. But unfortunately, it rained and neither the weather or Ethan were playing ball. So we decided to come home.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, my regards to Ethan. Of course, that's one of the biggest tourist attractions in Dublin. We kind of forget it here. We have one at Belfast, but we don't have one in the ABC Council. But that's where we're starting our conversation, I believe, this week.
Yeah.
About a launch of, was it a strategy or was just going through the motions? I haven't figured out yet.
It was a tourism conference, and it was they call it a summit to discuss the opportunities, prevailing and emerging challenges and future investment within the sector. So it was a conference which took place at Elmfield House in Guildford. It actually took place on Tuesday past, and I featured some bigwigs from around the world of tourism and, of course, the local council. So you had the likes of the chief executive of the council, Roger Wilson, John McGrone, who's the chief executive of Tourism NI, Tourism Ireland's director of corporate services, John McGrone, and a guy called David Brown, who he's the executive director of the Linen Mill Studios out towards the Corbett, right just outside Banbridge, where the Game of Thrones studio, this tour takes place, and also I think a lot of Game of Thrones was actually filmed there. So it was basically a chat about, what the challenges are, what the opportunities are. Now, you and I have both had a look at what came out of that meeting in terms of the press release. I mean, we weren't actually invited to the meeting, so we have no idea what was said. But let me make that very clear from the start, because we're not saying this wasn't discussed. But from the outset, looking at what has come out of that meeting from the press release, very little mention. In fact, I think, Don, you'll back me up on this. I don't think there's any mention at all of anywhere in Lurgan or Craigavon.
There doesn't seem to be, and it's not sour grapes, Michael, and I would say, well, maybe it is a bit of sour grapes. I've heard this from many people, that the focus on tourism is going for the big hitters, the big players, looking towards Europe and America, and perhaps the UK as well, for tourists, which is quite right, because there are tourists that will come here. They see Ireland as a destination they want to come to. So I suppose, why wouldn't you fly the flag of all the attractions, the big attractions that are here? The Game of Thrones attracts people from around the world. You wouldn't believe, up until COVID, the amount of buses that were filled with Chinese folk who seem to live, eat, sleep and breathe the very Game of Thrones. And at that stage, there wasn't this big centre at Bellevue. I think it is Bellevue Mills, isn't that where the centre was? That's where they did some of the shooting, as you say.
I think the proper name was Linen Mill Studios.
And that's the cover name, indeed, just out towards Corbett, between Banbridge and Corbett, as it were. So fair play, a big investment by a lot of people. And yes, the big places always seem to get mentioned. Who wouldn't mention the city of Armagh in tourism terms? It's a magnificent city. It has many attractions, and it has that big name on the marquee, as it were. but I didn't see anything, at least not in the press release, about this particular area. Now, we know that the council and others do promote to some degree. I saw a tourism video just earlier in the week where there was a mention of, a brief mention, albeit a few seconds, of Lurgan Park. I think it mentioned Oxford Island, but not much more. And certainly nothing outside those traditional places. So that was a bit of a disappointment. It's also a bit of a disappointment we didn't know about it beforehand, because we'd like to have been there. I know I would like to have been there just to hear what the thoughts were. And to throw a few more ideas into the kind of a mix. I don't know, what did you feel when you didn't see anything about this area?
In a way, I wasn't surprised, because the focus on tourism does seem to be going towards those two main tourism points, Armagh and its historical heritage. Of course it has. I mean, it's a fantastic Jordan city. I worked there, I live not too far away from it these days. I know there's a real tourism offering there, with the planetarium, Navan Fort, which you'd be familiar with, of course. Even go as far as Gosford, places like that there, you've got all that on your doorstep in Armagh. And then obviously the Game of Thrones thing is going to bring a lot of people in, as you rightly point out, because of the TV show. There's massive number of fans there and massive opportunities to try and expand that. But I'm not, so I wasn't surprised in a way, but at the same time I'm disappointed, because there are a number of tourism attractions in this area. I mean, even you look of the area, even from a retail point of view, why are they not saying, come to Armagh, spend whatever time you want going around all these famous places, but then spend the day in Craigavon, or spend the day in Lurgan, where you can come and shop and visit local retailers, things like that. There, you've got a historic park there, the second biggest in Ireland. We know this. We know all the historic points. Maybe it's just not being promoted well enough. What do you think?
Perhaps that's the thing. And I've said this before about two others who are in the same kind of, I can't call it work, but the same desire and interest that I have, I suppose, for heritage, for sense of place and all sorts of things. Maybe we're not making a big enough noise about what we have here, and a lot of this is up to ourselves. Maybe when we do, the council will get behind the ideas. What the biggest growth in tourism has been is the realization that people come to Ireland for many reasons. One of the reasons they come here, and they don't realize this until they get here, is to meet the people. We are second to none, north and south. This is an all island kind of suggestion. Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, the people is what makes a tour really take off for people. I know this from having met many people, as you say, at Navan Centre in Armagh and elsewhere. They love to meet the people. And we have that in abundance here in Lurgan. It's just creating the opportunities for that. Heritage is a very big part of what people come here for too, whether that's the pre-Christian. There's a lot of pre-Christian stuff around Lurgan, places to go and visit that you might take interest. And there's then post kind of Christianity from Patrick and onwards. Our churches would attract attention. I also believe the geology of this town of Lurgan, the Lurgan Townscape Guild came up with this map of the actual buildings here. They had a professor come study it and deliver the tour, and that's deliverable by many others. So there's lots of interesting buildings. Back to the churches, we have without doubt the very start of, I suppose, Quakerism here in Lurgan. The first meeting house was started here. We have on the outskirts, which many people won't know, the first major kind of graveyard of the Quakers. Now, albeit a lot of the gravestones are knocked to the ground, but it's there. We also have a stunning graveyard going back even before prehistory, if you like, in Shankill. The Shankill Parish Graveyard is a fascinating place, and I know that the Shankill Graveyard folk are wanting to promote that and hoping to have tours running again soon. post-COVID and all the rest. Oxford Island, which has not just the flora and the fauna, has an activity centre, a place and a location where you can bring people, but it also has lots of ancient history around it. And I know tour guides who are doing that and want to bring more people to that place. The Loch Shore is an attraction. It's just not seen as an attraction until you take people around it on tours. I have a couple of friends, Martel McParland and Angela Boyle, who've been taking people around, some of them local. And this is something that I didn't hear and see in this kind of outpouring about the local people who don't always know about their own location, and trying to encourage them. It's internal tourism, if you like. So many people looked to inward at the time of COVID and then thereafter. So there's a lot of opportunities. Brownlow House, of course, comes to mind too. The walking tours of the place. A. Russell is an attraction too, and there's a story to be told about that. Groups are doing that, but not enough people either knowing. And I do believe, because I have approached the council indirectly before about promoting this. I suppose it's up to us to get up off our heels and say, look at us, give us a little bit of support. So I think there's a willingness there within people within the council. So it's not just that they didn't look at us. I think it's now more than ever our responsibility to stand up and be counted. And this includes Portadown, it includes places like Tandragee. Tandragee does have that attraction of the castle. I think they're doing tours there again, aren't they?
Yeah.
There's such a richness of heritage there. At Lochgall, if you like, the Diamond has its own centre there. The locations are full and plenty. It's just a question of kind of shouting a bit louder so that they take notice of us. We don't need anybody to do this, but it's really helpful and useful if you've got that extra voice, as it were.
Yeah.
I suppose a minor disappointment, but I suppose maybe let's take it on the chin here. Nobody to blame but ourselves for not shouting louder, and maybe forward. That's what we'll do.
I don't think we're coming. I hope we're not coming across as if we're hammering the council on this, because I mean, a tourism strategy has to be welcomed. You know, obviously, they're trying to attract more people into the borough, and more spend is a good thing, more jobs, whatever else. So just to give them a line of defence, I mean, at the end of the statement, they do say ABC Council is committed to stimulating tourism throughout the borough by providing memorable and unique visitor experiences, showcasing its culture and stories, celebrating local food and orchard produce, and delivering world-class signature events to a domestic, national, and international audience. So
I think it made all those points too. Yes, it's about the signature events. I understand that very much, and coming off the back of it, what other events they can be. To be fair, the council I do believe will support. As I said, that's my own experience. So it's not quite knocking, but it's the usual story. When you see something, what does somebody say? We'd go 100 miles to be offended in this country. If we're not being offended, we feel as if we're being left out. There was nothing to offend anybody in what was said. It's taking offence. So you're right about that. It's not really knocking the council. The council are only representative of ourselves. It's up to us to kind of make it more apparent that we have something to offer, and maybe therein lies the problem, the difficulty. Let's start afoot. Let's get the groups together again. There is a heritage grouping in certainly in the Lurgan area that helps to and wants to promote. We were going to have a big heritage weekend of events for European Heritage Day, but sadly the passing of Queen Elizabeth made that impossible to do. Perhaps we'll resurrect that and push that word out there and take things a stage further.
Yeah, good chat. I mean, some very good points. Maybe do you know what we should do? We should set up Your Lurgan tourism office.
And there you go. I think that would be good.
You could run that.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for the job. That means an increase in, I don't know how to spend the money. I could turn the fire on again. That would be good.
But one thing that would bring tourism to the Craigavon area would be a rail halt, which brings us on nicely to our next story, which is the proposed, or talk of a proposed rail halt in Craigavon. Now, over many years, I suppose, one man who had been calling for a rail halt in the Craigavon area was John O'Dowd. Now he's the infrastructure minister and he's facing questions about when one might come or what the situation is with one. And recently, he was asked a question by Owen Tennyson, who was the recently elected Alliance MLA. It was his turn to ask the question, what the future of it, whether his department, whether John O'Dowd's department plans to deliver the proposed rail halt in Craigavon. And to be honest, the answer was a bit wishy-washy, but for good reason. So in response to the question, I think the answer was, it was a written question. It was submitted at Stormont, and the response came back late last week. So Mr. O'Dowd said that he was ambitious for the rail network and has a vision for rail connectivity to better connect our communities while delivering cleaner, greener, more sustainable transport within the budgetary envelope that is available. And he goes on to say that there's an all-Ireland strategic rail review which is taking place, and that's anticipated to conclude within the next few months, the final quarter of 2022, and that reviews being undertaken to allow people to consider the rail network and how it can be improved for everyone. I think that's actually an all-Ireland strategic rail review. So, I mean, other things have been proposed within that, or have been talked about within that, including another new rail stop in Armagh, which has been long called for by a group down there. So the department's also considering proposals for a new regional strategic transport network transport plan, which is a very hard thing to say, but that's what it's called, which will consider the development of the main road and rail networks to 2035, so over 10 years away. This will, in association with TransLink, Mr. O'Dowd says, include high-level assessments on a variety of rail improvements, including the creation of new halts, such as proposed halt in central Craigavon or the relocation of existing halts. So, and that's going to be subject to public consultation. So that's where we're at with that. Basically, no further on, and we're waiting for the outcomes, some proposals and some what are they called? What do they call those things? Real reviews, right?
As opposed to an unreal review.
What? Sorry, say that again, Donagh?
As opposed to an unreal.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, it's being looked at. I suppose that's the thing. We've got a couple of months, maybe we might find out if a Craigavon halt features in that rail review.
It could only be for the good. I know people say, "Oh, you can't spend money on this. We need to spend it on important things, which are important. It's always prioritizing." But you can see the value in this. Well, maybe I'm saying this because I have a pass that allows me to travel up and down the island on transport. The studies are beyond measure that show that by offering cheaper or if not free transportation on railways helps in so many ways. It helps the environment because you're going on a one system, whereas rather bringing your car, you require parking, you require diesel to go and all sorts of stuff. In Germany, as you know, they offered transportation for €9 a month, I think, on the transportation model, and so many people jumped on board, if you like. And the bigger stage of that is to increase and encourage an increase of the network so that it goes to places which is useful. I mean, it screams out that if you can build something towards Armagh at a reasonable cost, I'm talking millions, of course, here to even consider it, that why not? Because many of us have just about in living memory. I don't completely have, because it happened finally in 1964. A lot of the rural railways in Northern Ireland disappeared. Routes to Omagh, I think they even considered them in 59 and 60. And all these rural pickup points disappeared. And of course, the roads have been built over many of them, so it might be impossible to resurrect them. If we had them today, people could have travelled from Omagh, for example, into Belfast. They could have travelled from Enniskillen to anywhere, and it just opened up the whole country. And the environmental benefit of that would have been incredible. But I mean, it's a done deal now. But the idea of looking at some of these, well, it's whether you believe, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? You have to look at all these ideas in a longer term. You just can't say, oh, go spend all the money now. It's how it benefits in the longer term. And it really has to benefit anywhere that gets a railway station.
Yeah, I think if you look at the rail network currently, there's probably other places that have greater need than Craigavon. I'm not saying, by the way, that Craigavon shouldn't get a rail halt. By the way, I think it should. Same for Armagh. I've long supported the idea that Armagh should have a rail station, because I think it would be a fantastic addition to the city. And would certainly take a lot of the. If you've ever driven through Armagh, you'll know that traffic in Armagh can be mental most of the times. So a rail line would be a big help in terms of alleviating that. But I think there's other areas of the country that could probably do for a rail station more than Craigavon or a rail halt. I'm talking the likes of Enniskillen. There's nothing out to the west of the country. So that will have to be taken into consideration as well. But hopefully.
Even around Belfast, Michael, there's a need to join up all the situations, going out to Antrim, coming back into Lisburn, the connectivity there that would really enhance that kind of experience and give a wider commuter belt. What it does, whether you like it or not, it might put up prices in certain areas and towns of housing, but it gives the accessibility. Progress isn't always about increasing the value to the individual. It's about increasing the opportunity for the greater need, as it were. And it takes the strain off the roads in Belfast. It takes the movement of that physical traffic once again into Belfast. And there are benefits for that in the saving of energy in the longer term. And that's what we got to do. So, yeah, you're right. There are plenty of lots and lots of higher up the agenda priorities. But if it's affordable and doable on existing railway, why not? Why not nod towards that? I would be of that school, as it were.
Yeah, no, I think I'd agree with you there. We'll move on, and we'll talk about what you've been up to this week, because you've been out and about. You've been doing you've done a couple of very interesting videos. You're more of you on Saturday, wasn't it?
I was. I got the invitation from Caroline. I'll not go into her last name. It's a Dutch name. I know her husband as well. Caroline invited me up to this event, trying to promote kind of a resale of lots of old toys and maybe some clothes and a lot of stuff to give away, just to help the community within itself. They wanted to raise a few pounds and whatever. And well, let's have a look at how I got on.
We're in Mornview Community Centre today, and Emma is running an event today here in the community centre. All proceeds are going to a charity, and there is toys and there's free raffles.
This is actually a gift to my daughter a couple of years ago when I found it, and it hasn't been used, it hasn't been opened or anything, so it was just a £1. Wow. So it was. Okay. And I thought it was lovely that a wee girl would be able to make her own baubles or headbands. And
lots of unicorns. So
yeah.
It's more, the girls will all love these. I love unicorns myself.
All my daughter's bows, all my daughter's Barbies, so they're more Disney Barbies. And the couples, so the couples are £4 for a pair. Have our clothes, so those are lovely clothes, including myself.
Cool.
So we did tons of clothes and shoes, and then there's also kids' clothes, and all the kids' clothes and all were free. So they are in all the kids' shoes. It's only when you want adults, it's £1 per clothing.
Right, cool. So it wasn't, as you say, making the money, just giving the people the opportunity.
Yeah.
There's a young fella playing away at some
That's
toys.
Right, that's my son.
Wow,
yes,
my
I
goodness.
give permission. And they're all my nephew's Nerf guns he's grown out of. They haven't got the bullets, but then you get the gun. The gun is like £20.
How's it felt for you now that you've done this the first time? What do you think?
To get back all in the car and move it back into my shed.
But how do you feel yourself for the efforts that you made?
I'm quite happy. So yeah, I feel like we've other than the stress of getting all into the car and get around here this morning, which was quite hectic. It's been quite fun. It's good to have people come round from the community.
So between Caroline and Emma, we've got an insight into what's available in the actual community centre there. You'll know it yourself. It's not too far from Bourneview Park. And also from Emma McCartney, who's one of many keen enthusiasts and locals who want to support others. There's lovely gestures to be having. And they're having another one. I think it's the 20th. I think that's a Thursday. From 2 o'clock to 4 in the same location, if you want to check that out.
Yep, no, it was well supported, and hopefully the next one will go well too. And you've been out as well. You've been putting your jukes up. You've been doing a bit of boxing, have you?
Put them up, put them up, put them up. I'm like the lion in the Wizard of Oz. I'm a big coward, big puss in boots, as it were. But I did go to the actual event that the Southpaw Boxing Club had organised. You saw a bit of that in our footage, but I couldn't really get the interviews I wanted. It was too busy. Ryan Green was the main man running it all. He runs Southpaw. So I thought I'd do the decent thing and pop down to their training. And I met some of the girls in particular who took part. Well, it was a busy place, Michael, as you could see from the video. And that's 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 nights a week, just next door to Ryan's house. It's like a metropolis down in Ballinary now. That's Ballinary, I think they call the land, just beside what was Kane's pub just next door. And the place full of cars, people picking up their kids, older people and whatever. A hive of activity and good training to be had and all sorts. Let's have a wee look at the report.
We had a great night last weekend, full house in the Seagull Hotel for Autumn Strength's fight night for the Children's Cancer Unit. For my wee nephew, Adam Martin. He's been getting treatment there with that unit, and he's feeling a lot better. So yeah, we just want to run a wee fight for him for that unit. So
You said there were hundreds there.
Yeah, there was hundreds, there could be near 1,000 people there. Yeah.
And raised quite a lot of money.
Raised a lot of money. We raised over 15,000. Probably there's about £15,585, and then there's another £2,000 on Just Give page as well. So nearly 18,000.
Mary, you took this up more recently. Why?
I took up boxing about a year ago, and then it just sort of bullied me into doing the fight.
But why did you take up the boxing?
Just for fitness.
No, I took up boxing because I enjoy it, and it's really good, and it's a very good club, here, and we all kind of support each other, and that's what it's all about, teamwork and stuff, and I really enjoyed it.
What was really noticeable, I think it made the point when, on camera, that there were many girls, young girls, variety of ages, taking part in this, some for health reasons, some for basically mental health reasons, to get healthier or whatever. And they all had a bit of a laugh too, as you could see. Yeah. A really interesting guy, obviously a former champion at his weight level. So I didn't argue with him. You noticed that. And I get well behind the camera. Lovely bunch of people, and so much money raised, Michael. 17,000 pounds. What wonderful amount of money. And going to a cancer charity that benefits young people and research around that. So it was worth going to.
No, it's good to see people getting out. You mentioned the number of women and young people going to these things for their mental health, and I think you're absolutely right. I've started going back to the gym myself recently, and you do feel a lot better coming out of it because you feel like you've achieved something. You're writing off your worries. It's great. So yeah, definitely encourage anybody to go and do that.
So let's go one more time. Put them up. Come on, put them up. Okay, thank you. Shadow boxing. It's all that I'll get involved in.
Yeah, that's enough of that. But although it takes us very nicely into our sport, and we'll start off by talking about my beloved Lurgan Blues, who were beaten in midweek by Loughgall, although mind you, they did have a reserve side out. They did bounce back from their previous week's performances, which weren't great. with a 5-0 win over Dungannon Swifts last Saturday, which was good. I missed it, which wasn't so good, but there we go. And on Saturday past, yesterday, they played Crusaders down at Seaview, a place where they've actually had not a bad run of form recently. I think they haven't been beaten in 4 of their 5 trips there previously. So, and also in the last week, we've sort of discovered that Glenavon play better against the top 6 teams, the likes of Crusaders, Linfield, Glentoran, Cliftonville, than they do against the bottom 6 teams, the likes of Ballymena, Carrick Rangers, Dungannon being the exception. Portadown, the other week was a proof of the pudding of that, and also the 5-1 defeat to Newry City not that long ago. So, how would Glenavon get on against Crusaders down at Seaview? Here's how
it should be interesting. What's the manager called there? Stephen
Baxter.
Baxter. He's been there for quite a few years. I remember commentating on him while he was a player. Very, very strong kind of forward. Really kind of could put them away, and very determined when he became the manager. And they won the championship, or they won the league, what, a couple of times, 3 times since he took it?
Actually, I remember, if you go back as far as 2005, I think it was, Glenavon it was the season Glenavon played in the first division, after being relegated the first time, and I think the only time Glenavon have ever been relegated in their history. We played Crusaders at Seaview in a playoff, the second leg of a playoff. It was a wet, miserable Friday night. We won. At that time, you'd have been forgiven for thinking Crusaders were on their way down. They might never reappear again. Baxter had just been appointed at that stage as well. But under Stephen Baxter, they've fought back. They've won the league, I think, 2 times under Baxter in that 15-year period. They've won the Irish Cup a couple of times as well. He's done a fantastic job with the Cruise. There's no doubt about it.
But Gary Hamilton will know him well from playing days, won't he?
Oh yeah, I mean, Stephen actually played for Glenavon once upon a time too. I think Roy Walker might have brought him to the club whenever he was manager. So yeah, he's a familiar face around Warnview Park anyway. But yeah, so I was at the match on Saturday. Here's how Glenavon got on.
Glenavon 2, Crusaders 3, a hard one to take here at CV, where I'm on the pitch at the moment. Very, very narrow defeat from Glenavon. Very good performance actually by the Lurgan Blues, but they've been beaten in the end by an impressive performance by big Jordan Leckie, who's come on. Jordan Leckie, call him? Can't mind anyway. Leckie, who's come on, made a real handful of himself, scored what proved to be the winner. Probably just before that goal went in, Glenavon could have scored themselves through Owen Bradley. It was Bradley and Scannell who gave Glenavon the lead twice in the game, but both times Crusaders fought back and got themselves back on level terms before they ended up getting the winner. So it's finished 3-2. Glenavon as well had a good shout for a penalty right at the very end. Whenever Josh Doyle was brought down the box, Gary Hamilton certainly thought it was a penalty, but yeah, in the end, and another unfortunate defeat for the Lurgan Blues. It's finished 3-2 here at Seaview.
No comment, because as you know, we do this before it happened, but we can go forward in time and back in time, but we can't do it the way that you like us to. But yeah, interesting. We'll get your flavour of it all during the week. I'm sure your reports will tell us everything, and the smile or lack of smile on your report as well.
Yeah. If you're reading it or you're listening to this now and you want to find out more about what happened, I was doing live updates from the game, so go to the sports section and you'll be able to follow the game as it happened on Your Lurgan.
Cool.
Yeah, and then finally, I suppose we'll just wrap up with some Gaelic, because it's a big week. There's a couple of big games this week. There's a final next Saturday. St. Paul's are in the final intermediate championship. We've got a preview of that coming up very, very soon. But I suppose we should start off with the ladies.
Yeah, indeed. Friday night, we have been out and about, Eugene Craney and myself, getting, first of all, a flavour and an insight into what a couple of locals will think about this. Tommy Coleman, who could manage just about anybody. There's some suggestion he would make a great manager for the Armagh ladies. It hasn't happened yet, but he's certainly been involved in them. He's a couple of young daughters playing for Clan Earn. So we got his thoughts on Friday night. Did they leave the game behind them in the last time round, letting it slip at the very end? Could they have done more during the game, or was it really up pressure on them the whole time?
No, they definitely left it behind them. Anybody who was at the game was no question about that. You know, 75-80% of the play. You know, they just couldn't get they just couldn't get the score, the final touch. That's just what was going wrong. And sometimes, and more so in the ladies' games, when you know they miss scores earlier on, they seems to play on the psychic a bit more, and you know, instead of just forgetting about it and getting on with it, you know, it sort of affects them, and that seemed to be the case with Clonard last Saturday night.
And there'll be updates. Eugene will be giving you updates from the game later in the afternoon. It's an afternoon throw-in. Bit controversial, as we found out about Clonard being disappointed with the fact that they had to go to Crossmaglen when their opposition is in Carrickcruppen. They literally have to drive through Carrickcruppen to get to the game, and there was some controversy about where the game should be played. But as far as I know, it's still going ahead, and it's still going ahead in Crossmaglen.
I wonder why that game's not being played in Armagh.
Well, this has been the question. Maybe we'll have the answer.
Surely, with it being a senior ladies final, that's
Yeah.
the headquarters.
Whether it's availability, whether it's the floodlights are available for that game in case of extra time, I just do not know, Michael. I don't have the answers. Maybe the answers will have emerged before this podcast either goes out or after it goes out.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's a question you can ask. But I think that's us.
And indeed, yeah, we have you'll see it during the week. We recorded a little bit of insight into the finals coming up. You may remember that we did a GAA update of all the games in Armagh and all the championships that were starting. They've come to a conclusion this weekend for sure. Will be the following weekend, rather, next weekend, will be the conclusion for St. Paul's efforts to win the Intermediate Cup. So here's a little flavour of what happened in that conversation on Friday night.
There was one time, maybe Tommy knows as well, that if you look at St. Paul's had Kieran McNally, Morris McNally, Dennis Seeley, Mickey McDonald, Jim McCorry, you had a few other boys there, Paul McGlone. You had maybe 8 or 9 boys who played for the county from a club that had only been formed previously 10 years earlier.
That's right. I think they hit the ground running straight away in the 70s. The minor championship winning teams within 5 or 6 years, you know, of starting. They were in senior finals.
And Martin Seeley as well.
Martin Seeley, yeah. Liam McCorry, you know, all the McCorry bros. You know, so they hit the ground running. They were in minor finals, won a couple of minor championships in the 70s and went on to be a strong senior team in the 80s. They contested finals. They could well have had a couple of senior championships. Great county representation, you know, at senior level and underage level, you know, ever since. So, you know, they've left their mark on the game in 50 years for sure, not just on the local community in Lurgan, but on the game, you know, in Armagh as a whole. So
we'll have more details about that later in the week. Eugene will be keeping us updated throughout the week. And it'll be a special occasion if, just like last year when we had the senior championship winners from Lurgan, maybe we'll have the intermediate champions this time round. And commiserations to the folks in Ahagallen, where the local Ahagallen side didn't quite make it against Cargan, the champions of Antrim, in their final last weekend. But keep going, guys. Fantastic efforts. Very, very close, but well, no cigar, unfortunately, this time round. Yeah. And that's mostly about the Gaelic. That's what we're looking at.
That's basically it from us as well. I better go and do some work.
And while you're doing that, just because in the start of the conversation we were talking about tourism, let's see if we can come up with 5 or 6 places to float your boat, as it were, for tourism attractions in this area, and kind of maybe nod towards the kind of say, listen, look, we're here. So that's what we'll do during this week.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll come up with 4 or 5 ideas. Maybe do a wee feature on them all, and maybe do like a tourist guide to the wider Lurgan area.
Here.
Yeah, right. Well, we'll sign off then, Donagh, because I need to go and do some work.
Apparently so. So that's the Your Lurgan podcast for this Sunday. Thank you for joining us. I'm Donagh McKeown.
And I'm Michael Scott. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, the Sky, everywhere. Just search at Your Lurgan. We're everywhere. We're everywhere.
scribbly-dibbly-do.com. Yes, of course, info@yourlurgan.com for email. That's it. Bye.
Bye-bye.